Hello guys, this is Orange Movies, and today I'll be giving you the summary of World of Warcraft Chronicle Volume 1. This is the second part of the series, and if you missed the first one, you can check it out in the description below. So, without further ado, let's get into the lore. On the world of Azeroth, a big threat was on the rise. One proto-dragon called Galakrond was growing far too big as he started consuming other proto-dragons and even the dead ones. Dead energies started to spread and create abominations around him while also warping Galakrond. One of the Titan Watchers, Tyr, noticed this and warned the other keepers. However, the keepers didn't seem to care, as the war against the old gods and the ordering of Azeroth sapped most of their strength and willpower, and now they focus solely on maintaining vaults that they were put in charge of. Tyr wasn't like the others, and he took the initiative himself and allied with 5 proto-dragons to fight Galakrond. They won, and the threat to the world of Azeroth was no more. The other keepers were ashamed of themselves for ignoring this threat, and Tyr convinced them to imbue the proto-dragons with their very own power, creating the dragon aspects. However, the Prime Designate, Odin, was not happy with this decision, as he saw the proto-dragons as primitive life forms, and he decided to create his own elite army that will defend the world of Azeroth. He argued and abandoned the other keepers and took a wing of Ulduar as his own base. Odin then called the sorcerer Helia, and she ripped it off from the main structure, lifting it into the skies, creating the Halls of Valor. He then proclaimed that any Vrykul that dies a glorious death would be joining him to safeguard the world of Azeroth. The bad part of it though is that in order to do this, he needed a Valkyr, and no one wanted to volunteer for it, as being a Valkyr means you're pretty much stuck as a phantom forever, so Odin decided to do it by force. The sorcerer Helia opposed that idea, and Odin killed her and transformed her, creating the very first Valkyr. Meanwhile, the Titans were defeated, yet Norgannon's spellwork preserved the souls of the Pantheon. They were desperate to find physical forms to inhabit, so they traveled to the world of Azeroth and slammed into the keepers that they once created. The keepers were completely stunned and they had no idea what was happening, and when they tried contacting the Pantheon for answers but receiving no reply, a cloud of confusion and unease took over them. Yogg-Saron, who was locked up beneath them, sensed this and devised a plan to weaken his jailers and break free. As Loken, out of all of the keepers, was the most vulnerable one, Yogg-Saron focused on him. Loken often sought comfort with Sif, the wife of his brother Thorim, and Yogg-Saron turned this into an obsession, forcing Sif to cut all ties with him. Loken lashed out enraged and murdered her. However, the spirit of Sif, much to his surprise, forgave him and even instructed him in what to do next. Loken blamed the death of his brother's wife on Arngrim, the king of the Ice Giants, and Thorim instantly murdered him and his followers. This created a huge civil war between the Storm and the Ice Giants. Loken then used the Forge of Wills and created his own army to protect Ulduar and stop the civil war, and he also berated his brother Thorim, who then left the Titan City and languished in solitude for years to come. Loken then, much to his surprise, learned that he was manipulated all along by Yogg-Saron. What he didn't know though is that Yogg-Saron also corrupted the Matrix inside the Forge of Wills, creating the Curse of Flesh, which consumed his newly created army and would later spread to the other Titan Forged. This discovery shattered the last of Loken's spirit, and he was now fully devoted to hiding these betrayals, even if it meant embracing the powers of an old god. He was determined to defeat the other keepers, and the prime designate Odin was the first. Loken used Helya, who already secretly despised Odin for what he did, and he told her that he can free her if she helps him. She then sealed the Halls of Valor into a different plane, trapping Odin and his army forever. Helya would later create her own home, known as Helheim, that would become the birthplace of the Kvaldir. Meanwhile, Loken continued on his task and focused on the other keepers. First was Mimiron, who noticed a bug in the Forge of Wills and was then instantly murdered by Loken. His mechanomes managed to rebuild his body and return the soul to that new body, but his mind was broken and he was never the same again. After Mimiron, Freya and Hodir were defeated, and the only keepers that managed to escape were Tyr and Archytas. Loken then made himself the prime designate and banished many of the Titanforged from the city of Ulduar. These Titanforged were scattered, the giants traveled to the mountains and the seas, the Earthen tunneled into the ground, and the Vrykul remained on top, split into various small clans. However, this didn't last for long, as Vulcan and Ignis, the creations of Loken, wanted to conquer the land around Ulduar. To do this, they took over a Vrykul clan by force known as the Winter Scorn, but they started getting weak due to the Curse of Flesh. To bolster their army, they also created fire giants and iron constructs of their very own design. This huge force massacred the Earthen hiding in caverns, and only a small group of survivors managed to seek help from the remaining keepers, and the keepers responded. The resistance was very successful at first, but at some point Vulcan and Ignis enslaved the proto-dragons, using them as beasts of war. To counter this, Tyr summoned the dragon aspects, who were furious upon learning this fact. The invading army was defeated, and now the attention was turned to Loken. Tyr decided to steal the discs of Norgannon that tracked all history on Azeroth, and once they successfully did that, they traveled south searching for refuge in order to plan their next move, while also taking the peaceful Vrykul, Earthen and Mechanomes with them. When Loken learned about this, he completely panicked and he turned to the Catraxi, known as Akaz and Kyrix. These were super powerful old god generals that were once defeated, and now Loken freed them, roused them to life, and unleashed them on the traveling keepers. Tyr sensed this, and he decided to sacrifice himself, while Archytas and Aranaya led the rest of the Titanforged south. Tyr fought the Catraxi for 6 days and nights, and at the end, he resorted to blowing himself up using all of his possible power. This resulted in a gigantic arcane explosion that created a crater in the zone. Zakaz fell together with Tyr, while Kyrix managed to escape. This place would later be called Tyr's Fall or Tirisfal. The Vrykul were especially moved by this noble sacrifice, and they settled near his grave. However, the others continued south, eventually settling in the Vault of Uldaman. Some of the Earthen started getting the Curse of Flesh, so they asked to be placed in hibernation until a cure is found. Their wish was granted, but unlike the Earthen, the Mechanomes decided that they want to remain awake to protect Uldaman, knowing that the Curse of Flesh would take over them eventually. On the other side of Azeroth, a new race was growing, known as the Trolls. They were split into various groups, but they all shared a religion around the wild gods, eventually forming a bustling temple city known as Zuldazar. The Zandalari tribe was the strongest, but the Gurubashi, Amani and the Drakari were also powers of their own. They warred constantly, but one place was sacred for every troll near the base of the Zandlar Mountains, where a mound of blackened stone was located. Unfortunately, a rebellious group of trolls decided that they want to check it out anyway. They practiced rituals, thinking this was some sort of a loa in order to awaken it, but much to their shock, a gigantic Atrax general emerged from slumber and completely slaughtered them. This was Kyrix, the one who escaped the battle with Tyr. The Catrax then rallied the Akir, who once hid to avoid the banishment when the Black Empire fell, and a vast new empire was built, known as Azyakir, and they planned to take over the world of Azeroth. Left with no choice, the Zandalari united the troll tribes, hoping to counter this threat. United, trolls were very successful, but they had a huge problem, as any Akir who managed to escape underground would be able to create a new colony and rise again to fight them. In order to prevent this, they realized that they have to guard every corner of the continent, and as a result of this, the troll factions established strongholds across the world of Azeroth. It was a tough war, as some of the split groups struggled against the Akir, but eventually the Amani decided to destroy the heart of Azyakir, Kitix. The entire tribe flung itself in a suicidal attack against the Catrax, and only a tiny fraction of the trolls survived. After the death of their leader, the Akir were completely decimated and were hunted down as they fell back. The surviving Akir fortified themselves underground across different places on the world with absolutely no desire to fight whatsoever. The trolls won the war, yet after they lost their united goal, they split apart. Out of all of the Akir that would rise to power in the years to come, the Mantids soon enough established a new empire of their own in the south regions of the continent. They completely forgot about the trolls, and now they focused their entire fury on the titan creations known as the Mogu, as they guarded the heart of the old god Y'Shaarj. The Mantid cycles began, and every century from that point, a new Mantid clutch made war upon their enemies. Initially, the Mogu were completely unprepared and were slaughtered, but at some point they gathered their strength and launched a direct assault into Mantives, completely devastating the Mantid. Using Kiperi Ember Blades, a Mantid Corvin turned the tide of battle, thus creating the ranks of the Paragon, who would preserve the Mantid society in the years to come. Alright, and that is all I have for this video. Now stay tuned for the last part of the series, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you're not subscribed to the channel already, as it really helps out and keeps all the videos going. And thanks a lot for taking the time out of your day to watch this video, and see you next time.